for the Anasis 2 mission, and today it'll be flying its third mission. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle that's covered in soot is what we refer to as the first stage, and its job is to accelerate the launch vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere into space with the help of 9 Merlin 1D engines that it has at the base of the rocket. Now today we are attempting to recover this first stage on our drone ship named Of Course I Still Love You. That drone ship stationed off the east coast of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean. The stage is designed to be reflown 10 or more times with minimal refurbishment between flights, so we'll be excited to get that first stage back, hopefully later on in today's mission. Job is to accelerate the first stage. We have the black carbon fiber interstage space with the help of and then 9 Merlin top of that is actually the Falcon 9 second stage. It has a single Merlin vacuum engine to recover this first stage on our drone ship in that interstage named Of Course I Still Love You. And the first and second stages stationed after they ignite, that Merlin vacuum engine will ignite and separate. It will ignite and carry the Starlink stack of satellites into circular orbit, expecting that to happen about 2.5 minutes into flight. Falcon 9 has been loading propellants since about T-minus 35 minutes. Now, as a reminder, we use rocket-grade kerosene, or rocket propellant 1, RP1 is our fuel. And we also use super chill liquid oxygen, or LOX, as our oxidizer to power Falcon 9. Currently, RP1 and LOX are both nearly fully loaded on both ships, Mystery and Mischief. About 2 minutes before the fairing halves are expected to land, the recovery team will conduct a go, no-go poll for the catch. And if the weather cooperates, weather is an important factor, then hopefully we'll see those two fairing halves recovered. But weather, really important for the sea states of the recovery boats, as well as how the fairings return to Earth on parachutes. And so we'll be keeping a close eye on that. Speaking of the weather for the launch is currently go. We have a 70% chance of go, with the possibility of a thick cloud layer rule being the only thing that might stop us. So far, haven't heard anything on the nets. So the vehicle, satellites, weather, and range all looking good for an on-time liftoff just under 5.5 minutes from now. Now, as mentioned on our last Starlink webcast, the first phase of testing with our private beta program is well underway. In fact, earlier on this week, we heard from emergency responders in Washington State, and they shared their experience using Starlink. In the wake of the wildfires that had devastated areas of the state back in August, first responders have been using Starlink for their purposes and also to help bring the residents of Malden internet service while they rebuild their community. Now, Richard Hall, the head of Washington State's Military Department IT division, was quoted saying he's never set up any tactical satellite equipment that has been so quick to set up and anywhere near as reliable. Malden is located about 35 miles south of Spokane, Washington, and it falls within the northern latitudes of the planet, an area that our satellites currently service. Now, the way that emergency responders deployed Starlink is the way, and in fact representative of how Starlink works best in remote and rural areas where internet connectivity is limited or unavailable. Our Starlink network is still in its early stages, but as the network grows, the coverage will also continue to grow. And we're continuing to target a public beta opportunity before the end of the year. So we'll share more information as we get closer to that. If you're interested in the updates when that time comes, head on over to starlink.com and sign up for updates. So about just under 4 minutes to go until liftoff. Falcon 9 moving into the final stages of countdown. At this point, the first and second stages are nearly fully loaded with RP1 fuel and liquid oxygen as our oxidizer. The super chill liquid oxygen is actually what's creating those white clouds that you're seeing on the second stage there. That's from the liquid oxygen. We have a little bit of venting happening there, so as we continue to top up those tanks. And when that comes into contact with the moist, warmer ambient air of Florida, it causes water vapor to condense and actually literally form clouds and liquid oxygen as our oxidizer. So coming up here, we expect to have the super chill liquid oxygen 3 minutes on the first stage, creating second stage those shortly white clouds that you're seeing on the second stage there. That's from the liquid oxygen. We have a little bit of venting happening there, so as we continue to top up those tanks. Once we get to T-minus when that comes into contact with the moist, transition into warmer ambient air of Florida, the causes water vapor to condense. Internal flight computers literally take over the launch countdown, liquid oxygen as all the way through the rest of the mission. We expect to have the super chill liquid oxygen, and then 3 minutes on the first creating second stage white the launch clouds that you're seeing on the second stage there. Go, that's no go pull for launch. Liquid oxygen, excuse me, his go for launch. So far, Starlink payload continuing to look healthy. Falcon 9 team is not tracking any issues. Weather also continuing to look good, and the range is green for launch. Just passed through T-minus 2 minutes.
Stage 2, LOX load complete.
There's call out for LOX load complete, so we're finished. Loading propellants onto the launch vehicle, first and second stages. We'll expect to see some venting from the transporter erector, that truss structure next to the rocket. That is just to clear out the lines, so any liquid oxygen in those lines being vented out, and then again forming clouds with the moist Florida atmosphere. And then coming up in about 20 seconds, expect to see Falcon 9 go into startup. We'll listen for the launch director's go. And again, this is pad 39A, so that black structure next to it, not too long ago had astronauts in it. No people on the pad, of course, today.
LDs go for launch.
So with that, all systems go for launch. Launch team is go for launch. Why don't we listen in to terminal count for Falcon 9 liftoff.
T-minus 30 seconds.
So it looks like we had the clock stop at T-minus 18 seconds. We're going to check in with the launch team, see what we can learn from this. Again, during this portion of the mission, Falcon 9 is fully autonomous and it's monitoring the health of a number of its systems. So this could be completely normal. But we're going to check in with the teams. And,
This is LD on countdown. We've had an abort to a out-of-family ground sensor reading.
So just heard over the nets that we aborted on an out-of-family ground sensor reading. So a number of ground sensors in the pad area that we use to monitor our ground systems, make sure everything is healthy before launch. I'm going to continue to listen into the nets, see if we can learn any more about today's abort. Now, as you just heard on the countdown nets, or if you're just joining us, we actually had an abort on the pad associated with an out-of-family ground sensor reading. Prior to that, the countdown was proceeding nominally. Now, keep in mind, the purpose of countdown is to help us catch potential issues prior to flight. There's 1,000 ways that a launch can go wrong and only one way it can go right. And given that we're overly cautious on the ground, and if the team or the vehicle sees anything that looks slightly off, we'll stop the countdown. Now, overall, the vehicle does appear to be in good health, but that will end our launch attempt for today. Our next launch opportunity is still pending, but we hope you'll join us again for the next attempt. Please keep an eye out on our social media accounts for more information on that. Until then, thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you next time.